Yeah, my bracket's getting cooked. I'm PG, I'm chillin', I'm losing bets, and this is my review of Metro Boomin and Future's We Don't Trust You. If you don't know by now, these two artists are longtime collaborators and friends. I mean, hell, Future is responsible for one of Metro's most popular producer tags. And as far as producer-rapper collaborations go, this is the one when it comes to the trap subgenre of hip-hop today. But only this time it's in a full album form, 17 tracks and clocking in at about an hour. So coming off the heels of one of their biggest songs, and my personal favorite of theirs, Superhero, will their chemistry continue to grow and surpass that, and is this album really worth all the noise? But I'll get to that later. In typical Boomin fashion, we get a cinematic intro. It's a dark, minimalistic beat that really drives the point across, especially with this looping sample from a 1971 song called Smiling Faces Sometimes. Other standout samples on this album are Eazy-E's Easy Does It, and a song called Everlasting Bass, which provides these nasty, booming horns on the song Like That, which again, I'll get to that later. There's a nice soulful sample on the song Everyday Hustle, which especially works well leading into the Rick Ross verse, which is something Rose really raps well over. And we even hear Mobb Deep's Quiet Storm sampled on the song Seen It All. As you could tell, I'm a sucker for great sampling and production, and it's crazy to hear how Metro can make these work with the trap-style production you hear today. And speaking of Mobb Deep, we hear the late great Prodigy throughout this album on some of the tracks, acting as a narrative interlude on the intro and outro of some songs, which actually makes for some sort of connective tissue and theme across the album, where we hear him speaking about what's real, what's fake in the rap game, and talking about trust. There's also these 80s-like synths sprinkled on a few of the tracks, just a hint of Weeknd and Mike Dean type beat. So my thoughts on Metro Boomin certainly don't change after hearing this thing, because in this lane of hip-hop he is undoubtedly the best producer and curator. Now Future, on the other hand, is a rapper that I like to hear in doses, and that's just how I feel because his semi-mumbling delivery with the auto-tune, especially across a whole album, 30, 40, 50 plus minutes. Also, how many more songs do we need to hear about being toxic? Toxic relationships, throwing money at this bitch, fucking this bitch. Now, fortunately, there isn't too much of that on here. He is also able to stick to the theme here, talking about the paranoia of being a big success and a big-time rapper, and dealing with that in the streets, flexing and hustling as well. But even so, Future isn't that dynamic of a performer on here, and he is doing about 90% of the performing, with a few solid features in the process, like Playboi Carti, Travis Scott, Rick Ross, and most notably, Kendrick Lamar. Okay, now let's talk about it. Kendrick steals the show on his verse, or at least gets most of the shine upon release and reception of this album. He disses Drake pretty directly, and he also disses J. Cole, who just happens to be in the crosshairs because he worked with Drake on the song First Person Shooter, and he is also part of the Big Three. I actually think that the most clever or best bar on here is the one talking about your best work is a light pack. Prince outlived Mike Jack. Basically saying while Drake has tied MJ in terms of #1 hits or something like that, K-Dot takes the stance of being the greater and more respected artist. Honest question though, is that how people view Prince versus MJ when they're compared side by side or something like that? This is all another example of Kendrick taking years off to make this thought-provoking album, but every now and then he reminds you that he is that guy. Like the famous Control verse back in 2013. And I think I speak for everyone when I say this, we want this Kendrick more often, rather than in the shadows or hiding, so to speak. And you know what? Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to break that competitive ice in hip-hop right now. Because outside of something like this, it seems that the only real beefs that are happening are because of stupid online activity, or talking about someone's girl, taking someone's money, and all of it just ends up in violence. Stupid violence. So in the spirit of pure bars and competition, this was a good verse and a good appetizer for some crazy shit that might happen later this year. I would expect Drake to respond a lot sooner than later. As for J. Cole, he'll probably say something, but we'll have to wait till the fall off. So this album definitely has strong moments and highlights. Metro Boomin quality production? Check. Something viral for hip-hop? Check. Multiple bangers with replay value? Check. Future's performance? Not really my cup of tea, not consistent enough. By the end of this album, I think it just sounds stale. If you filter out a few songs and add a couple more features, I think this album could have been better. And also just pull something more or different out of Future. So earlier this year, Metro and Drake had some sort of fallout. I don't know if it was through Twitter, I don't know, I don't pay too much to all that drama. But it looks and sounds like Metro has picked a side. And while doing so and making his mark, he's still able to create quality music. Although I am more hopeful for what a Metro and JID collaboration will sound like, hopefully coming out this year. My favorite songs are Young Metro, Like That, Cinderella, Running Out of Time, and Everyday Hustle. But what are your favorite songs and what are your thoughts on this album? Because these are my thoughts. Stay blessed.